make it easier. Okay, for experiment 1, the type of questions that you could get is like reading the measuring devices. So let's say if you have a picture that shows the level of the liquid, you had a similar question on the pre-lab assignments, that it shows emit, and then you had the level of the liquid. Then you have to record that with proper number of decimal places. And then if you are given like a mass volume, have to calculate density. Basically, that's what I can say from that experiment. For classification for physical change of the chemical physical changes, if it's like a change is given, you should be able to recognize is that a physical change or a chemical change. Examples. And for empirical formula, the empirical formula, I'm not too, I'm not going to make it more heavy on the calculation, but understanding of those numbers. Let's say if you have, let's say mass of the zinc, unreacted zinc. So these are questions that you have like additional questions in the data sheet. If you didn't dry the leftover zinc, how would that affect the calculation of empirical formula? So you have answered those questions before. The final exam, it helps me or assures me that you didn't copy those answers from your classmate because your classmate really liked you and wanted to help you at that point. So because everything is like open access, open book, I have the final exam not to punish you, but to make sure that you, even if you did copy at that point and I didn't catch and I just grade your assignment and I gave you the point, you need to learn, you need to know why, a change in not drying the zinc at the end of the experiment is how it's going to affect the empirical formula. We get higher ratio, lower ratio, no change. So if you answer the pre-lab questions and the data sheet yourself, you just review it, just remember what you wrote down, and you should be fine. So I'm not making the exam challenging at all, but I'm making exam reflecting what you have done for your pre-lab and the data sheet to make sure that the answers that you put there, you actually knew what the where is coming from and why you answered the way you answered. This is not saying that I expect people to copy the answers, but it's just saying that I want to make sure the work was yours, and if it wasn't yours, then now you have to study, and it might take longer for you if you did copy answers or you did guess the answers. Now you want to do well on the exam, you are going to review those carefully. So empirical formula, same thing. Exploring the mole, maybe like just a calculation of mole to mass or mass to mole or Avogadro's number. Then you have the conduct, if the electrolyte, non-electrolyte, would it be, it's going to be electrolyte or non-electrolyte. That means that your compound must have ions and ions must be mobile. So a condition. So if you're given like 3 or 4 compounds, which one is electrolyte, which one is not electrolyte? Let's say sodium chloride. Is it electrolyte? Then you have to pay attention. Is sodium chloride is liquid? is sodium chloride solid or sodium chloride is in aqueous solution? Because if it's liquid or if it's in aqueous solution, it's going to be electrolyte, but if it's solid, it's not going to be electrolyte. Acid-base titration is, again, it's calculation and the methodology. Let's say, what's the difference between endpoint of reaction and equivalence point? Just the what does the color change means? Single displacement, double displacement reaction. You learned about molecular equation, ionic equation. You learned about the net ionic equation. So if you have molecular equation, to go from molecular equation to ionic equation or complete ionic equation, you're not allowed to change the solid, liquid, or gas to ions. If it's a precipitate, it doesn't generate ions. If it's molecular compound, it doesn't generate ions. So you have to leave that part alone. And if it's an aqueous solution, a compound with the AQ designation, that will change to ions. So we'll change to ions, you write the ions. If you have ionic equation, going from ionic equation to net ionic equation, you would cancel spectator ions. It's the same assignment that you have done for part 1, 2, and 3 of experiment 7. You had 12 reactions there. I'm not going to bring all 12 of them, but you could get like 1 or 2 of those reactions. And if there's no reaction, then there would be no reaction. For that reaction, for that experiment, if I give a question to you, I will also provide you with the solubility table. So you don't have to memorize everything in the solubility table unless there is no exceptions. Like any compound that contains group 1A is not soluble. I'm sorry, take it back. Any compound that has a metal from group 1A, it's always soluble, no exception. Would always be soluble. Any compound that contains like nitrate ion would always be soluble. Okay, if I didn't get a chance to grade any of the papers by Friday, I will not have question from that experiment. If I have a question on the exam, the pre-lab or the data sheet for that experiment will be graded. A cycle of copper, for example, you had some questions there. If you didn't add enough sodium hydroxide, how is going to affect the recovery of the copper? I might give the reaction set, and then I ask some questions about that. So, I think I heard like intermolecular forces, stronger intermolecular forces is going to give lower rate of evaporation. So a change in temperature is going to be smaller, is not significant. Delta T value. Molar mass or freezing point depression. Those are also colligative property. If I get a chance to grade papers, that assignment, the type of questions that you could get from that is just, again, very similar to the pre-lab questions. For that, for gas law, which we used for determining molar mass, very similar questions to pre-lab discussions. Okay, pre-lab discussions. So if you can't answer any questions in the pre-lab, you just go back and watch the pre-lab discussions. Blackboard Collaborate has all the pre-lab discussions recorded for this semester. The ones from last semester, which is the actual experiment, it's from experiment 1 to 7, I think, is not there, but that's actual experiment. For those, you have your data sheet, and I'm not taking, specific questions from those videos, but from pre-lab discussion is going to help you a lot. Just make sure you have good understanding of each experiment. And again, just to be fair, and I know questions left for anyone concerned. If I didn't grade any of the assignments, I will not bring question. Let me look at the chat because I heard no scratch paper. If I have heavy calculation, then I will say that you are allowed for scratch paper. That will, and I'm going to just say now, no scratch paper, because I don't want you to bring it and then they would block you from taking the test. So no scratch paper, because it's based on understanding of the experiment, and there's space to write. You can type, you can delete, type, delete until you're satisfied with your answer, and you keep the answer, just like scratch paper. That's like electronic scratch paper. Every box that you are allowed, you're writing on it. And if it's multiple choice, there is no, again, it's based on understanding, and there is no need for scratch paper. So no scratch papers, unless there is heavy calculation. And do you want heavy calculation on the test? No? Okay. No scratch paper, no heavy calculations. Next question. No paper. General trend for solubility. Just the general, just the ones with no exceptions. If I give a question, I give you again, if I give you like a chemical reaction, I will give you the solubility table to you. So you can look at the solubility table and decide which compound is soluble and which one is not soluble. How many questions? I would say like between 20 and 25. And I try half multiple choice and half free response. Half short answers and half multiple choice questions. Okay. Any questions for me? No questions? Okay. I think I have questions. Okay. Reflection assignment is going to be, I don't exactly remember. It's based on the syllabus. If the syllabus says extra credit, it's going to be extra credit. So what to study is the experiments, but I would, if there is any experiment that any pre-lab or data sheet that I did not grade, I will put that also in the announcement that these experiments will be on the test. So I would make sure that the experiments that I didn't grade, the pre-lab or data sheet, is not going to be on the test. And that would be on the announcement, because I don't know how many more papers I will grade all the papers, because I grade based on the correctness. It's not based on the completion. It's not based on submissions only. So I have to grade them all, and it takes time. And just to be fair for your final exam, if there is a paper is not graded, there would be no question from that. And that is something that I would put on the announcement. But what to study, it would be the pre-lab questions and questions from the data sheet. Okay, I think I answered all the questions that you have on the chat box. Okay. Any additional questions? So in general, to prepare for the exam, it's just like if you have done the pre-lab, post-lab questions or pre-lab and the data sheet yourself, basically you are ready to take the test. If you, just review it once. But if you didn't at that point spend enough time to remember it, now you just have to review more in detail. And as long as you understand the experiments before you finish the course, is the work that, it's good. No, you don't have to log in. I usually log in and I put like some title like last minute questions, but if you don't have questions, you don't have to log in next week. You just go ahead and take your test. The test is going to be available from 8 a.m. until 11 a.m. that day. Please do not start at 10:50 because when the time for class is over, then the test will stop. So make sure you give yourself enough time. So latest you want to, the earlier the better. So you have time to finish the test. So you should, I expect you start at any time before 8:30. Yes, this is your yes, Katie, this is your last class meeting, and I wish you all, the best. I hope that you, after this test, you have then, since you don't have labs, you can study for your other exams and have a great summer. Thank you.